I'm Claudia Chan, author, speaker, coach, and champion of the Wholeness movement. For over 20 years, I've studied and coached high-achieving people, learning their thoughts and lifestyle patterns. But through their stories and my own journey, I've discovered a profound gap between outward appearances and our inner fulfillment. In the Claudia Chan podcast, my colleague Shannon and I will uncover the invisible epidemic of chronic busyness, endless rumination, or that quiet feeling of unfulfilled potential that many of us bury underneath our accomplishments. You'll learn how to experience the consciousness of each day, transform the pain of hard moments, and discover the alignment that our souls desire. Let's go. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Claudia.
I'm going to start us off in prayer as usual. Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the light, the natural light that's coming in through the window as I share this space and screen with Shannon. And today we are going to be talking about paradigm shifts, which is one of my favorite just terms and concepts of life, and how we can often get so caught up in the things that we desire and the things that we are waiting for and in the waiting rooms of life, but we can lose sight of the bigger paradigm shifts so that need to happen in order for those things to come our way. And letting go is a major part of that. And Father, as always, we know that whoever is going to listen to this episode and the longevity of this episode and who it's going to touch, we just pray that it touches the right people and it brings impact to their lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
So in the idea of paradigm shifts through letting go, which is today's topic, it's such a nice dovetail from what we spoke about last time we got together, and the idea of letting go through forgiveness and letting go of past pain, hurt, anger, etc. So there's lots of different things that you could let go of, and the different outcomes that happen are those paradigm shifts that we're talking about today.
Yes. Yeah. And really for the journey of this work in whole self leadership and this movement of whole self leaders, just to root us back in the mission, is as we are in the year 2025 and in the start of the new quarter of a century, and where we are in history and where we are in time, and as a Gen Xer and you a millennial, but just in this humanity where our followers and the people that follow Claudia Chan are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? They're adults living their lives, and the work has been in my journey of doing life and doing work and doing community was, wow, like we are all, as people, we're striving for that success. We're striving for that next level in our career, in our family. We're moving through what you're supposed to be doing at what age, at what decade of your life, and the age of your kids, or the title, the level, like if you're a director or an assistant or a VP, we're sort of on that track, right? The track of life. And it's just so easy to get caught up in all of a sudden, I'm working so hard to maintain this life that's outside of me, right? The job, the kids, getting all the operations that it takes to do day-to-day life. And we can just lose sight of waking up one day and wait, am I even happy? Am I even happy living this life? And is the quality of experience of my stress levels and what I'm thinking about and my self-talk and my inner talk and what you and I are always referring to as programming, and the actual lived experience. Are we feeling that joy? Are we feeling peace? Or are we always in this, got to be more productive, gotta hustle more, and I got to get that done, and just this what we call chronic busyness. And so in our movement, in doing this work for over 20 years and being with this demographic and my own journey and recognizing and awakening myself to it and saying, wait, I need a paradigm shift. I need a paradigm shift. Like, I don't know how much longer I can maintain this way of living, and where I never feel like I'm meeting the expectations I have of myself. And that's like, I can never, ever, ever catch up. And so why I love the paradigm shift is it's like that term is so powerful because it gets you to think about things from an outside in perspective, from a much bigger strategic, higher level perspective, versus like, oh, I want to just, I can't wait until I get that raise, or I can't wait until the kids graduate, this level, or that they're out of diapers, or I can't wait for my vacation, or, we get so attached to these little things, these superficial things that we think is going to bring the big shift. And when I get this, then but the then never comes. And so paradigm shift is such a, to me, a more powerful concept that, like, wait, what's the bigger thing I need to do to make a paradigm shift?
So much there. I think it leads into the trends that you see all the time as somebody who's tracking culture and speaking to the masses of leaders and helping coach them and their inner thoughts. The burnout, right? It starts with, exactly like you said, the chronic busyness and the point that it seems as a society, everyone is at this breaking point of being able to go faster and faster, do more with less. And it seems like the idea of a paradigm shift, the more that we speak to people, is pretty universal.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, there's so much research on the Claudia Chan site, which you obviously helped me with your amazing and tremendous background on, also, being in the research with me, Shannon. And so what we gave it name. Like, we need to name and brand things, right? We're creating a whole new language. And because when I set out to, like, wait, I got to redefine success. I got to redefine leadership. Like, I got to redefine these things. Because originally my career was empowering women and empowering people. But I'm like, no, wait, like, empowering them to what? To actually create a definition of leadership and success that isn't healthy. Like, we need to redefine what leadership and success is. And so that is so much of our, we're looking to, our movement is to reprogram this generation. And so that our kids, my 8 and 10-year-old, and, your 9 or 10 and 13, am I there? Am I close? Year old, they're living, going to have a whole different future. Right. So that's why we're doing the work. But it's what we call awaken to the invisible epidemic. And there are, we called it the invisible epidemic symptoms, and chronic busyness is just one of them. And like unconscious addiction to productivity is another one. And never being at the end of every day and never feeling like you met the expectations of yourself for that day. And because of course, at the end of it, you can just still look at that pile of laundry that needs to be folded and whatever it is, or that extra wrinkle or whatever that you might be getting. So yeah, it's this unconscious invisible epidemic and these patterns. And so it's awakening us to it, and really a call for, okay, what paradigm shift do you need? And so, and when you say burnout, burnout is one of the 3 core life stages, but I often call it like the burnout baller, which is I look great on the outside, but there's something behind the scenes that's breaking. And that could be your marriage, and that could be, just your anxiety or depression dips that's invisible. It could be you're struggling financially. It could be a lot of different things, but it also goes all the way up to like unfulfilled potential, which we've talked about too. And so I think there's a lot of people out there who just are coasting and like, I'm going to just not care a lot and just like repeat. And then, so what is the paradigm shift is, and we came off of a beautiful call last night. Share with the audience what you felt about the call and what the call was.
I don't think we should talk about the call.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, what it is, what I'll just mention is community membership. We have a membership called Inner Circle, which is when people want to experience this whole self leadership work. They can either coach with me, or they can buy the course, or they can join the membership community. But it was just beautiful last night hearing the stories of women and individuals who've been in with us for the last year, and just their paradigm shifts. Just the freedom and the peace that comes with it.
So do you think that paradigm shifts, speaking of consciousness and unconsciousness, are something that people can do consciously, or is it something that happens unconsciously and then you reflect back? Or how does somebody achieve a paradigm shift?
Yeah. So I think the first thing with this episode, if we were even just to go through, okay, what are some of the steps, which is really what we want out of the session today, and this episode today, is number one, to realize, like, just stop for a moment and reflect on the quality of your life. And, our site has a huge resource. We've got the whole self wheel, where there's a lot, where like you can go through, like take a pause and look at the whole self wheel and start asking yourself, okay, if I have 60,000 thoughts a day, if I have a story I tell myself every day, what's the quality of that? And what's the quality of my daily experience of life? And you could, like, it has a list of, the circle of marriage or partnership or family or community or career or just purpose. And, I just think it's a great way to just sort of step in and just look at, okay, where am I in my life, and what is what has been the same for so long that has been unpleasant or unhealthy, where I feel like, and I always say, either you're in survive, strive, or thrive, where you're in this constant state of survival or a constant state of striving, and you're not thriving, right? So basically it's like, what is that thing that I've been praying for and hoping for and like efforting and gripping so hard to control and change and it's just lasted for so long. It's just been your paradigm for so long. And so that is the first thing to get conscious of, that it might not be that, okay, like I got to just get this contract in, or if I could just get this next job, or if I can get one more contract, or if I can get my kid to finally, like, like my son's going through a GI thing right now. Is he lactose intolerant? like whatever the thing is, it is, but it, like, time and time again, every New Year's resolution, the paradigm hasn't changed. So I think it's that thing that has lasted for so long in your life. And again, looking at yourself like 10,000 feet out. So it starts there.
The separation, the distance, the perspective, looking at your life from the outside in instead of the inside out to help.
By the way, that's a signature Claudia Chan, because, so much of my life has been, or like this work, the last coming to faith 18 years ago, or discovering faith 18 years ago, and my journey through going to church with John and just sort of like being a baby faith and like, oh, this is interesting. And that journey, it was actually my relationship with God. And like, what does God think of me? Like, what is God's the highest, most almighty, and Like I'm just this one human of 8+ billion, 8 to 9 billion people. And like what's God's perspective of my life? And so that's where that outside in perspective came from. Like, yeah, how do we are always checking in and like, again, evaluating ourselves, like we're our own client, like we're our own advisor, and getting out of yourself to shrink what has become so big. And ultimately the goal with whole self work is to become your own coach, like to become which is also your healthiest parent, which is God. God is your healthiest parent possible, you know? And so God's my ultimate role model for that. And that's where I got that. And that was where the How We Rise book came, where the She Summit name came, this mountain. I'm climbing this mountain to the top of the mountain in this one lifetime. And that's just one mountain of like billions of mountains that God is just, looking down upon us and trying to guide us if we actually have the space to like listen and hear.
I think that's the hardest part of it. The hardest part is when you're in that stress, when you're in that pain, that challenge, that difficult place, that dark place often, how to pull yourself out of it. And like you said, create that separation and be able to start the healing process.
Well, and this is a great time for me to even pull up the I hack. And I don't know if but I won't, maybe what I'll do is I'll attach a link to the graphic in the episode notes. But so that's the framework. It stands for imagination, healing, alignment, and creation. And so, after you're like, okay, here's like the paradigm I've been in for a long time. And I often call that like a country. Like, let's just say you're in like a country, like I've been in this country for a long time. And now I want to live in this new country. I want this new life. And so imagination, and I just sort of see this like gap in the space between these two countries. And so what we start doing in the work, and you can get that in my courses, or you can get that, we talk about it in our community. And we obviously, if you're working with me one-on-one, but we start like, if money didn't matter, if responsibility didn't matter, like just really getting you thinking about and imagining, what like the highest joy and desire of life, which oftentimes my clients can't even, it's really hard for them to even do, because the muscles you need to imagine and dream just get so stale and just so buried over time. Like it's actually really hard for people to vision and to imagine when those creative juices have just been so
out.
Yeah,
exactly.
Out. And so and that's why to get from one country to the other, I would say at least 1 year. And it depends too on like how often. I mean, it depends also like how deep your stuff is, right? I have people that can move pretty quickly. I've moved people like within 3 months. Because it's like how deeply embedded are a lot of the, the stuff that's holding you back. But imagination is where it starts. I think it's Einstein said that knowledge will take you from one place to the next, but imagination will take you everywhere. And it's really fun to Google just quotes on imagination. It's one of my favorite words. And you actually, Shannon, pushed me on that word, because originally it was vision.
I just wanted the acronym.
You're like, wait, what are the words again? The hack was there, but the V was throwing us off. So we changed it to imagination. I just love that word. I love that word. And, but then healing, like, at least that gives me a North Star. Like you can't hit the bullseye if you can't see the bullseye. So that visioning and that setting a destination is so important, and what that looks like and what it feels like and what the experience is like and what the day-to-day is like. And so that's a beautiful experience. That's not as easy as it seems. But then there's okay, now let me understand what the belief systems are. Now let me understand, what needs to get healed. Like what are the, like, what's the program that's running your life? And then when we do figure out those hard moments, like what are your hardest moments, that's where the tools come in. We brand tools, and so the question is, like, when you're in the middle of the trigger, can you remember the tool? Can you remember to grab and grab your exercise, and so that's a whole world of just work we do there. And every time you get triggered and you regulate yourself, that's where you're rewiring and reprogramming. And that's when alignment, the alignment, the A and I hacks starts happening. So.
Yeah, it's seeing things differently. So seeing things not in the way that you're used to seeing them, that have been ingrained in culture or ingrained in our minds. I think you said it last night, actually. It's like, what is truth?
Exactly.
So when we have paradigm shifts, and it's I think essentially boiling down to the things that you thought may have been true or real or even important may not be as important as they were. And with that reframing, we're able to see things differently and have different experiences than we were previously.
Yeah, and I'll give you a practical example too because there's a lot of former corporates, or a lot of people that have been in corporate America for like 20, 30 years. That's your experience as well, right? And then now you're in a more entrepreneurial setting, or what you were in is no longer serving you. And so, and there's various people who are like, I'm just done, and they leave, or they're, maybe like there's downsizing, they get let go. And so there's various scenarios of, and another example could also just be, an empty nester. I know I have a client whose son went to college 2 years ago, and it's been a real struggle for, like, in a very, very deep way. And so, but in the example of corporate life, and even, like, I'll say, even though I've been an entrepreneur for so long, I do feel like I left corporate, or I stepped out of corporate, which were all the big, large checks, right? All the big payments, and, getting paid 20K for a keynote, right? And just like taking a pause from all that stuff. And it's because I wanted to, and a lot of today's talk and the paradigm shift is inspired by a post that I did on Instagram. And what is it today? Today is November 5th. So I posted it. Well, anyway, it's around, just check my Instagram, around November 3rd or something. But I did a post because my son was in the ER, but just like thinking about how I've really made over the last few years, like, my God, my faith, my family, my kids, my marriage, my community, my first full-time job. And I've been able to allow my career and the business to be secondary to that. And because of the stage of life, and because of the needs, and my age and my kids' age, and all of those things, and how I've had to really intentionally cut back on a lot of different types of expenses, and just things that, where when you're making and you're banking it, like, you're just throwing money at things, right? You're like, oh yeah, and I'll just hire, we'll just do like weekly housekeeping, and we'll do, got the babysitter, and like, like the au pairs, and, or just, we're like, hey, I bought like this stuff from Amazon, came by accident, but like, I don't have the time to return it, so we'll just keep it or donate it. And there's just like all these little things that start building up of time. And yeah, we're going to order in more, we're going to eat out more, and just, and then there's like something, you don't have time to plan anything, so you're buying things last minute. And, and I think that is, for so long, I was living this life where, the cost of living was so insane, because I never had the time to actually to slow down and to look at those things and say, okay, I don't need to go to like I can make this Halloween costume because I have like 3 hours free today or something like that, you know? And I actually made my son's sushi costume because he wanted to be sushi last minute. And I didn't, like everything was sold out. Amazon couldn't deliver on time. So I just went to Michael's and made it. And so I've just been reflecting on just, you know, when you are in those moments, you can easily say, oh man, you know, old Claudia could have just, you know, like bought that in 2 seconds, or I would have knocked the stuff out, you know, or look what blah, blah, blah did. And look how fancy that thing is. Or, oh yeah, that person just has like a full-time babysitter or what. It's just so easy, right? Like you're at pickup and you see one little thing, or you look at this one little, the cost of something. And it's just so easy to just go down that negative pathway and start judging yourself, criticizing yourself. Like, what happened to my life? Like, who did I become? Like, I failed. And I know we talked about this, like just moving from Florida to Georgia, right? It's like, you know, I was a New York City girl. I was Manhattan. Howard Stern was my neighbor. And, you know, it's just so easy to go down those pathways. And yeah, I want to share these vulnerable things because I think that that's what people, you know, we just don't know what that negative self-talk looks like because it's just so a part of who we are. And we need to really step back. And when you catch those things and you know that that's your pattern, then you can grab the tool to catch it and regulate.
So let's double click on your Instagram post and what that paradigm shift that you're referring to is. So in your post, you're saying that for the first time, you made your job, which what you're saying used to be, whether it's corporate or entrepreneurial, you made your job changed from working
Yeah.
to being home, caring for your family. So is the paradigm shift in that example the way that you spend your time? The paradigm shift is you just called your job being with God, being with your family, taking care of your home. Was that your paradigm shift?
Well, it used to be like lifestyle used to be, it is like, I feel like up until 40, like, so I left the Northeast at 46, like, and 4.5 years ago. And I think I used to always just, it's like waking up and thinking, okay, what do I need to do today for work? And what do I need to do today? But work just always was the first baby. Work was always the priority. And it felt like, okay, the kids, like order them lunch today. Am I making like, what the nanny, like, whatever it is, like everything is I call it the operations of running a household, like the operations of life. Okay. And then we've got a plan. It's Christmas soon, or it's, we've got this thing, like health appointments. And, there's that thing, that the admin of life and the family, like everything was just like I talk a lot about connection and like intention versus transaction. So in a way, having kids, like I think that the paradigm that a lot of us, and I know we talk a lot about parental life, and there's plenty of people that are in our audience who don't have kids, or they're empty nesters and they're way past those younger years. But it's a feeling of like they get the leftover version of me. Like if I have, let's just say 8 hours to work today, or let's just say 4 or 5 of those are the best hours. Like the thing that's keeping me up at night, the thing that I'm thinking about the most is the business. Like that is the weight, and that is the pressure. So I would say from becoming an entrepreneur at 25 to like 40, actually 46 is when and it was the physical move, and it was COVID that really started it, because I just had all this free time that opened up because I could do things virtually versus having physical live conferences. But that was when the weaning off the addiction started. And and it's always a part of you, like it's a part of you for a long time. And so because it's just all I ever knew. I haven't had a W-2 since I was like 24 years old, like it's just so a part of who I am. And it's not even just, it's my identity with who I am professionally, who I am as Claudia Chan. Because my companies have always been driven, like I've always been the face of the company, or the company, my name is completely synonymous with my work. And obviously, if you know me and you know my work, then you know my passion. So it's like what I eat, drink, sleep. And so I think my identity to my safety and to my worthiness and to my expectation of self was just always so attached and entwined and enmeshed in all of it. And so, yeah, if we're going to take, like, yeah, maybe I'll get that snuggling time with the kids, or maybe I'll get, to like, I'll make it to the, it's Chinese Lunar New Year, and I'm going to go do that Chinese New Year thing in my kid's classroom, or I'm going to go to the parent teacher conference, and I'll still make all that stuff happen. But it's like, it's just a part of the operations of life versus it being a priority. And I'm starting to give my love and my, like truly like intend, like have joy around it, and just really make it this joyful experience, even though of course it's still hard, but when you say something like, no, wait, my full-time job is like, if I'm going to be in bed or I'm going to sit on a sofa and I need God right now, like I'm not getting up. Like if I have to sit there or lie there for an hour until my body feels I'm ready, like I'm going to be in God, or I'm going to be in, what I do now too is like I take tons of photos when I'm with the family. And then I use that free time sometimes to create these little reels and little albums. And I just think that my kids are going to have that for the rest of their lives. And it's just just what are the things that truly, truly matter the most? And so, and like I've rearranged the business and set things up so that, and the investments that I've made is, increasingly automating a lot of things. And, so that I can have that freedom.
So the paradigm shift from defining what a job is. We used to see jobs as how we spent 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, or what we did to get paid or to
Survive.
achieve X, Y, or Z accolade, accomplishment, title, goal. And I think what you're saying, excuse me, I'm so sorry, is that we're looking at it differently. Is how we spend our time. It's what we're creating in that time. You're creating family moments, cherished memories, Halloween costumes, homemade snacks, homemade lunches, breakfasts that aren't being outsourced, time for prayer, all of these things.
Well, and something else that's been coming up as you say that is, so I've always been a feminist and this women's empowerment voice. Like, I mean, it was in my, if you search TEDx Claudia Chan, back in 2013, 12 years ago, I did a TED talk on the She Revolution, but essentially it's my journey of growing up with both my parents were together, but my mom was just such a life force, and I saw her cook, clean, and basically run the Chinese restaurant. And she was like the operations of the household. And I was very close to her growing up. And then when I started getting older, and I'm like, wait, women aren't equal to men. And then I went to an all girls private high school in New York, right? Which is a prestigious thing. Like they like saved on Chinese newspapers, and somehow people were much wealthier than us and sent their kids to public school. But for some reason they sent us to private school. So, but this all girls background, which was very much around empowerment. And then I went to an all women's college, like a feminist college that Gloria Steinem, Sylvia Plath went to Smith College, one of the Seven Sisters. And, and then God just had this destiny for me to be in the women and girl space. And I guess maybe it was a childhood of many, many girlfriends and understanding women, but, and And so when I created the She Revolution, it was like she helps empower the world, and like how do we inspire women to be change makers for women's issues? Because I was looking at like stats, and women make 70 cents to the man's dollar, and all the different atrocities to like gender gaps, and so I spent, gosh, like up until basically my whole career empowering women. And so what's interesting is now as I've become, a more passionate Christian, and like finding faith is what inspired me to get into a lot of it, to get into this impact work. But now I'm, as we've talked about, I'm so much more open about my faith. And when we heard Erica Kirk's speech about, and this whole conversation about the nuclear family, or that traditional family, and Charlie Kirk's conversation around, the godly wife, and, who stays home or take care, like, even though she has her businesses and she's got her own like projects. But it's one thing that I've been thinking a lot about, is because the feminist movement is like, wait, no, we spent years unwinding from that tradition where I'm supposed to be domesticated and make Halloween costumes my full-time job. Like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have an identity, I'm going to have a career. But like, at the same time, I'm also living through that domesticated, and also making family such a priority, and the home and the culture of the home such a priority. So it's interesting how the wholeness movement really has always been backed by all this feminism, and yet there's also this massive like tradition. And so I've been thinking a lot about how, as we move into the next 25 years, how the wholeness movement is also sort of bringing the two together.
I love that. I love that. I've been
One.
I've been correlating just recent trends and things that I've been seeing that I feel like are signs of the revolution, or signs of the paradigm shifts, for example. And I've mentioned some of these to you before, but it's like social media usage is down. Social media engagement is down. So what people think, the dopamine hits and clicks of outside in validation is declining. More people are turning it off or leaving. Another is alcohol use is down, and that's one that same thing. Like, it just doesn't serve me like it used to. It's such a paradigm shift in how you can be more present and you can make more memories when you're being intentional with your time, and kind of like living in those moments instead of using alcohol to create that artificial dopamine. And then the third is that 455,000 women, according to the US Department of Labor this year, have left the workforce.
Wow.
And exactly like you said, it's this double-edged sword where it's like, for so long, we worked to get seats at the table or have that presence. But if it comes to the point where it's not serving you, and it's what we see everywhere, those anecdotes of burnout, of chronic busyness, lack of imbalance, lack of presence. And of course, obviously, things like return to office is cited in these articles, where similarly just balance and those things are at play too. But I think that these are all signs that it's truly starting to come to fruition.
Yeah. And the idea, I think where I'm at too, is like, what's the solution that bridges the gap of, okay, when we look at traditional, like the 1960s and the 1950s, you know, the man went to work and the woman stayed at home. I still remember the series Mad Men,
Love it.
right? Where, you know, who's going to take care of, there's one person, there's a lot of labor that's involved in running a family. And so one person's going to take care, as being the CEO of the home and the kids and meals and school and education and all the kids and family needs. And the other person's going to be the CEO of, you know, the money and the provision and what's going to pay the bills. And so that was the traditional way. And it's interesting that yet the wholeness, the whole self, right? We're also then, those families are also working really hard to raise kids where their daughters can also go to college and maybe go to med school and maybe go get, you know, their business degree or go out there and get a job that they're passionate about. So then you're going and you're getting this education and you're taught you could be anything you want. And, you know, like those traditional dads are raising those daughters, right? And then, because they're not telling, I mean, we don't have you know, dads telling their daughters, hurry up and get out of college and just marry a rich man or marry somebody who's just going to provide and take care of you, right? So you could stay home and take care of the family. So we're living in different times. And so then, you know, these young women, we all of a sudden have a whole self, right? It goes back down to the whole self wheel. Like what's everything, every life department that makes up who I am. And yeah, I'm going to get my first job and I'm going to develop a passion in, you know, maybe it's, I want to be a veterinarian, or maybe I'm really passionate about kids, or maybe I'm passionate about music, or I'm passionate about medicine. And, you know, they're going to go out there and they're going to find their talents and their skills, and they're going to start building their careers. And then, yeah, they're going to have, again, all the other life departments eventually start filling up. And then it's like, okay, so wait a second, now that I have a family and I have kids, I'm supposed to let this piece of me go. And so I think that that's why, or I know that this is why the whole self, like, so what's the answer to that? It's our movement. It's the wholeness movement, which doesn't say that you have to do anything at a certain set period of time, right? Like you can go like, okay, have your career until you're 35 years old and finally you're having kids or you're married or whatever, or you're single momming it, or, you know, IVF or however you're doing it. But like, okay, so maybe then there's going to be a season where I'm going to rearrange things. But the wholeness of who I am, you know, is always going to be there. It's a vision board that's always evolving, that I'm always looking at and saying, okay, what is unfulfilled, or what is not now but later. And so that's where I think a lot of those feminist women who are, you know, in their 30s and 40s right now, who have just been killing, like have worked so hard to build their business and build their careers, are like, they're like dying, you know? And then, so the response I got on that post was so massive. And like a lot of people, those women I knew, and I know that they're burnt out and they need the permission to let go for a period and maybe make something else their full-time job.
Well, I think what you said is so eye-opening, which is it's always evolving. So your plan 10 years ago may not be your plan now. Look at how much has changed. Look how industries have changed. Look how the world, the economy, so many things have changed. So of course you have changed too, and your needs and wants. And I think the second other thing is it's unique to everybody. And that's the salient point, that the programming, this is what success looks like. What success looks like for me looks different than what success may look like for you or for her or for her. And that's okay. And that's the I in I hack. It's imagining, it's designing, doing the inner work, really thinking about what do I want, not what does society tell me I should do, or what success looks like in this idealistic bubble.
Yes. Amen. Amen, sister. And I think when you said design, it is designing your life. And that's why I'm always going back to the outside in, and whatever vocational work you're in, whether if you're like a professional organizer, or you're a wardrobe consultant, or you're like whatever, or you're a doctor, like whatever type of work you are in, like you have to make yourself like you are your first thing to analyze. Like you're your first full-time job. The design, and how do you want to design, like based on where you are, based on the next 5 years. And it's actually, that's why too, our master quote is, the journey of life is not to achieve this imaginary, like limitless amount of money or success. It's to define what wholeness means. So wholeness should replace the word success. Like wholeness is like, success should mean, what does wholeness mean to you right now? And I've had so many clients say to me who've done my corporate courses, and they're like, when I first met you, I never ever thought about, the only department I ever thought about was my career. I never thought about community. I never thought about like relationships. I never, and maybe this specific woman that I recently spoke to, she's out of the UK, and she was when I did my How We Rise PepsiCo course, she did that course. I always love it when like 3 years later I get a message and like, your course changed my life. I never thought of my life that way. And I completely made a paradigm shift since I started looking at my whole life as the business. Your whole life is the client. And so that is, yeah, like what does wholeness mean to you right now in the near future? And then that can shift, as you said.
Awesome.
And it's, and also just, it's also about experience. I always go back to, what do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? Like we get so caught up in like the stuff, like I want to get this client. I want to get this promotion. I want to get this amount of money. I want to move it to a new house. I want to, and it's like, starts like sort of let go of sort of those material things. But like, okay, you have the house. Okay. You have like, you launched that course that you've been wanting to launch, or you've gotten your MBA or whatever, went back for your master's degree in like spiritual health. Like, but what do you want to experience? Like, what do you want your life to look like? What does your Monday through Friday look like? What do you want your Monday? Like, what do you want your full day to be like? And so, because as you get older, it is really, those hours and those minutes just become so precious. So yeah, it is. And I think we can close this conversation with, number one, it takes a massive amount of the inner reflection and as we've been saying, the outside in, and focusing on, okay, what journey of discovery do I need to go on myself? And then there is I need to create space to do this work and letting go. And that's why we've talked a lot about slowing down. We've talked about simplification. We've talked about like, and there could be major changes where, to move from one country to the next country, like you're going to have to let a lot of stuff go, or you're going to have to let stuff go or surrender things that your old paradigm has been gripping and struggling to hold on to for so long. But like your body is going to break. Like if you continue to hold it, like your health will pay the price eventually, or your marriage will, or something else will. And so there is this massive like journey of the letting go.